Hi, welcome everyone. This is a new format for me, so I'm going to actually ask Mike Thaney, who is my partner in this endeavor. Am I live right now? Like this whole audience out there, people are experiencing me
I
virtually.
believe so.
All right,
Folks,
and
if you could hear us, you could see us. Someone write something in the chat channel. I see Leanne sent something. So if
cool.
you guys are able to message, just let us know.
Well, welcome. You're also experiencing my dog Pearl, who is barking at, I think, the mailman. So this is not the Zoom platform. We're using a different one provided by Startup Grind, but it still, works the same way. We're still in this virtual mode, but it was a beautiful day here in Rochester. Um, there's been pros and cons to being able to do these things virtually. I hope everyone is in good health, have been enjoying a wonderful and healthy fall. Welcome back, RocGrowth past RocGrowth attendees, members, friends, and welcome to all those Startup Grind followers. This is our first joint event, our first partnership, although we've been friends for years and have similar DNA in our support for the entrepreneurial and innovation community in our region. And RocGrowth, along with the folks over at Startup Grind, are doing everything they can to support the new and emerging Rochester. At RocGrowth, we're also, like Startup Grind, trying to provide information and exposure to all of our great innovators and entrepreneurs, of which we have plenty in the region, one of our great fortunes. We also, everything we do is informed by promoting greater equality of race, class, gender, and age. And on that note, that's perhaps why when the people who helped produce this, all of us got together, we were sort of leaning into social entrepreneurship and trying to highlight that people who've adopted a more for-profit model, a business model, and a business approach can often have equal or more impact than things that are known and referred to generally as nonprofit. There's a great deal of ambiguity, and things don't delineate as much as people believe. So again, we have a surfeit of social entrepreneurs in our region in abundance, and we are highlighting 5 of them tonight who are all engaged in pursuing scalable business models, already generating revenue. We've also reserved some time when towards the end, while our judges are deliberating, to feature two startups, more individuals who are also doing wonderful things in the community, because I want to highlight that although the term battle is used in the title and it's called that's a Startup Grind brand, I guess, the startup social or a Startup Grind pitch battle. We're viewing this as a friendly contest, sort of like the pickup game you might have in a schoolyard among friends, the shirts and the skins. And we're all going to go out and have a beer or whatever, a pop, whatever your preference is, afterwards, because all these are wonderful individuals. Most of them know each other already, and we're all supporting the same community. I also want to highlight now, before we begin, the judges who've been kind enough to offer up their time and their expertise in evaluating the presenters. We have Maureen Ballatori, who is an entrepreneur herself. She started a company, 29 Design, and also is connected, you're a partner in Metro Collective, which is a co-work space, not your regular old co-work space, right downtown on East Avenue. And we have Kelly Netros, who, along with her wonderful husband, owns Selena and Knops right there in the Village Gate. But Kelly has also started this fantastic organization called Bossy, which is an affiliation of wonderful women who are driving change and are spirited and bossy in a good way. So without further delay, I would like to go through our 5 presenters. We have a format, and we're going to adhere to it. We have a timekeeper, Mike Thaney of Startup Grind, and they're going to be basically 10-minute intervals. The entrepreneur has 5 minutes to deliver a presentation. There'll be 3 minutes for Q&A. We have, you want the Q&A in the chat box, Mike? Is in the chat box questions, or how? I'm not sure. Is it going to be among the judges, or?
Yeah, between when each pitch is over, we'll pop the judges back up on the screen like they are now, so they'll be able to see and interact with the startups. I would encourage the community, though, to use that chat box either for feedback, encouragement, or if we have questions, we'll try to get to them if we can. But 3 minutes goes pretty fast.
Cool. So we're going to shine the light now on Zach Ellis of Their Story. Zach is a boomeranger. We have a couple of them here. Someone who grew up and was educated in Rochester and left for a while and has returned and decided to pursue his business venture here in our community. So Zach Ellis, Their Story.
Awesome. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Mike, for hosting me. I'll share my screen here and get underway. All right. Can everyone see my screen? Perfect. So I'm Zach Ellis, the founder and CEO of Their Story. Their Story is a web-based platform that optimizes the recording, editing, preservation, and dissemination of remote video interviews. In the 1930s, a German Catholic widow of 5 children stood in front of her house in the small town of Hockenberg, Germany, while my grandfather hid inside of her house as a mob of Nazi sympathizers were yelling "Juden raus," all the Jews out. She stood up to the mob, they disbanded, and it's because of her courage that I'm here today. Now, my family learned about this story by happenstance, but I imagine a world where the stories of everyday individuals, their sacrifices and choices made, lessons learned throughout their life, are always remembered and accessible as easily as you would search on Google and for generations to come. Organizations all over the world are starting to realize the value of recording, preserving, and making accessible the stories of their community. Groups like the Black Front Line are documenting the stories of Black nurses and doctors across the US, UK, and Ghana during the pandemic. The women military aviators are preserving the legacies of a pioneering and lost generation of women in aviation. And here in Rochester, the Rochester Public Library is partnering with community organizations to employ teens of color to document the stories of elders of color and work with documentary filmmakers as they create an archive for African American history and culture. Now, each of those organizations are existing Their Story customers, along with over 60 others. Universities are using the platform for not just project-based learning, where students are interviewing, building relationships, and creating podcast episodes with community members, but also for alumni stories and fundraising. And smaller under-resourced communities like the Chickaloo Native Village of the Atna tribe in South Central Alaska are preserving their native language through Their Story. Now, these universities, libraries, museums, archives, and nonprofits are using these stories for fundraising, to raise awareness for their causes, and to engage their community through exhibits, programming, documentary film, and social media. And while oral history has been around for ages, the reason that these companies are turning towards Their Story is because we're helping them address 3 key problems. The first is that the technology used to go across this end-to-end process, all the way from planning to transcribing, editing, and making accessible these stories, is a completely fragmented space where organizations are using 5 or more platforms, none of which are integrated, to go through this process, and it creates logistically burdensome projects that are unsustainable. The second is that for institutions that are successful in collecting, they find a new challenge, which is that audiovisual material, especially long-form content, is notoriously cumbersome to edit, to manage, and to find the key moments that matter. For example, the Council of American Jewish Museums has 18 museums across the country using Their Story, who have done over 500 hours of recordings about the American Jewish experience during the pandemic. And if I were to ask them before they were using their story to find 3 moments where someone mentioned or talked about the idea of joy during the pandemic, good luck. But with their story, you can do that in seconds. Now, these 2 problems of fragmentation and the cumbersome nature of the audiovisual material leads to high costs. So institutions are paying on average $500 to $700 per hour of interview, and even as high as $5,000 per hour. And this means that long-term and sustained large-scale projects are really reserved for the wealthiest institutions. What we're doing with their story is empowering every community to take ownership over their own narrative by building the first platform specifically meant for oral history from end to end. Organizations can plan and manage their projects, pull questions into the interface, as well as mark key moments during the interview so that not just the interviewer, but whole teams can collaboratively and socially find the moments that matter, make meaning from it, and edit video as easily as you can edit text through our automatic transcription, highlighting a piece of the transcript, dragging it over to the right, and pulling out that key quote, as well as others, to produce high production value narratives that can be disseminated across video streaming and social media platforms, as well as embedded on their own site, ultimately creating a living digital archive of the lived experience of humanity. We're working, in closing, not just to help preserve the legacy of celebrity or the traditional institutions that win, if you will, but the story of everyday individuals, their challenges, and working together and making that the basis from which our communities grow and learn together. Thank you. And I'd love to open it up to the judges for questions.
That was great, Zach. Adding the judges right now. You're a couple seconds under your time, so no reason for me to jump on the screen.
Perfect.
No. And I think we had Kathy here for a second. I'll monitor the chat and give Kathy, our other judge, has any questions.
I'll start if that's okay with you, Kelly. Great job, Zach. 2 questions for you to start. Is this live? Like, is it going right now? And maybe I missed this, what is the cost of your platform?
Yeah, totally. So yeah, this is live and going. So since April of 2020 is really when all of those almost 70 institutions have started using their story. And so we've generated just over $140,000 in revenue over that time. And our model, I can share my screen again here, is an annual subscription model that actually increased our prices since this time. Our customers have told us we're underpriced, which is always nice to hear and very generous of them. So our annual subscription model is $3,000 per year for up to 50 hours of recording, and then really lends itself to a land and expand model. So like the University of Wisconsin started with a starter package. They're now paying over above what a premium package is. And then we're starting to have conversations about institutional-wide licenses. Right now, our largest contract is $25,000 with a trade association, and we have our first kind of university-wide contract that we're in discussions with today.
Great, thank you.
Is this something that's done in person or recorded virtually when the stories are captured?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it is done virtually. You can both. For example, today's conversation, or the 3 of us could be talking over their story. It's a remote video platform that's web-based. You don't need to install any software. You don't need to create an account to be interviewed. So really, really simple for people who might not be the most tech savvy. But you can also upload your own audio and video content and use their story for automatic transcription, indexing, and soon video editing as well.
And if you're not a part of the $3,000 a year, are you still able to use the platform?
Yeah. So we have pricing for individuals that's at a lower cost as well. That's limited to a single seat. We sell mainly to institutions today, and we price just based on usage so they can have an unlimited number of accounts. So the professor and their students, other projects at a university, and so on. But yeah, lower pricing for individuals.
And how many employees do you have?
2 full-time, and we actually just raised $385,000 in our pre-seed round, and our third hire, full-time full stack developer, is joining on Monday.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I have one more, Kelly, if that's okay. This is a social entrepreneurship pitch competition. Can you talk a little bit more about the social part of your company?
Sure. So I think there's probably a few different ways to tackle that question. I'll give just one example. So a lot of the challenges in underserved communities is that their history has been left out of the historical record. And oral history has been one of the main practices of knowledge transfer in underrepresented communities. And so we're actually using the best practices of oral history of this field that is actually about preserving the legacies of everyday individuals to make those stories a part of the historical record and make that accessible to researchers, to filmmakers, and so on. So the example I gave during the pitch, the Rochester Public Library and the work that they're doing, a lot of the cultural heritage institutions that we work with, is about preserving the stories of underserved communities.
So are you actively seeking out relationships like that and going after relationships in that way? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Can you talk more about how you're doing that a little bit? And then I know we have to move on.
Sure. Yeah, so we've been spreading, I'd say mainly even by word of mouth, but I'll give an example of the National Museum for African American History and Culture. They're not even yet a customer of their story, but in one of their programs on family history, they recommended our platform for African American families to preserve their family stories. So growing by word of mouth by the institutions that are responsible for the preservation of these stories. And we focus on cultural heritage institutions, which are focused on preserving the stories of under-resourced communities, oftentimes.
Thank you.
Yep.
Great. Let's keep pacing it. Let's keep the pace going. Move. That's just wonderful. Thank you, judges and Zach. We'll see more of the judges in a moment. And we're going to move on to Jacob Fox, someone I just met, but had read his press clippings a year or so earlier. After attending Hobart Smith, he launched a venture he'll describe in further detail in a moment. It's called Closed Loop System. So Jacob, hey.
Hi, how's it going? Can you hear me well? Great. Well, I'll share my screen real quick. Can you see me? Can you see my presentation? Check the chat, make sure. Anyone, let me know in the chat if you can see it.
Looking good.
All right, great, thanks. So hi, everyone. My name is Jacob Fox. My name is Jacob Fox. I'm co-founder and CEO of Closed Loop Systems, and we are a waste management company based in Geneva, New York, in the north side of Seneca Lake. And what our business is our model is to create a world beyond waste. So, what does that mean exactly? What we're trying to do in what we're doing right now in Geneva is design, build, operate, and manage decentralized organics recycling facilities. So a lot of people have heard of compost facilities. We have kind of a different take on composting. It's called a vermicomposting process. And for this, we call it organics recycling. So that's taking food waste and yard waste from local communities, residents, restaurants, institutions, etc., and turning it into healthy soil as close to the source as possible. And the other, we also co-locate municipal transfer stations. So that's recycling and all of the components that are associated with recycling. So, that's a really missed opportunity in our waste management system. We have this like global recycling system that really ends up, shipping a lot of our recyclable goods over to Asia and Southeast Asia. And a lot of people have heard about China no longer accepts our recyclables anymore. And so there's a huge overhaul going on in that industry. And what we see is we can actually, meet people where they're coming to us to drop off their yard waste and their food waste. And, they'd like to also drop off their other recyclable materials as well. And we want to, collect data as it relates to that. And that's something that the waste management industry doesn't really do because it's so heavily centralized. It's really just kind of, just get it away as quickly as possible. And we also offer custom hauling solutions. So, we try to be conscious of, the resources associated with hauling, trucks on the road. No one likes that. And so we have some innovations associated with hauling that allow for organics to either be hauled less frequently or not at all. And so we work across the spectrum from the waste side all the way to the application of the resources. So that's mostly soil and liquid. And we work, applying that to farms and landscapers. But then with the other resources, like the recyclables that we connect, there's an application with those resources as well. So, just getting down to the nuts and bolts, we want to, save people money. The waste management system is currently actually very expensive and it's very wasteful of resources. And so, customers actually want positive environmental impacts with their waste, but they want it to be easy as well. So we kind of can fit that gap and we can turn that waste into usable resources. And, kind of the next level of what we can do with that is we can then engage with public policy and we can say, there's a lot of, waste planning that's going on in upstate New York and across the nation. And, people are trying to decide, do we need a giant landfill here? Or do we need a giant incinerator? And by collecting that data and communicating with, the right people, we can, let them know, what kind of waste management infrastructure we need. So this is the municipal waste stream that is basically, what everyone throws away in our cities. And so it's actually 54% biodegradable, and that we can actually handle that in our current food waste trenches. And so that's food, the yard trimmings, and the paper. Most of that is biodegradable waste. And the unfortunate thing is at least 80% of these resources are currently being landfilled. So, I just mentioned 54% of it's biodegradable and another percentage of it is recyclable materials, but, it's mostly going to landfill right now. And that's a big problem. And it's coming from all of these different areas. This is the Ontario County landfill, just 10 miles outside of Geneva and Canandaigua. You have material coming from all over the eastern seaboard and Canada coming to our facility. So really what our solution is to decentralize that and to instead build facilities at each of those communities rather than one massive one in the middle. So here's, what our dream was in Geneva. And here's what we opened in March. And this is phase one. We're going to be upgrading this site. We're going to be paving it soon and adding a recyclable collection. So what we have here is just yard waste drop off, food waste drop off, and then we have the composting and vermicomposting process on the back behind the fence. And, this is really why we're doing it. This is like really the biggest impact when it comes to the organic resources. As you see on the left there, it's a tremendous amount of food waste. People might think that's really disgusting, but if you see over there on the right, the darker colored soil is soil and the lighter colored stuff is dirt. And dirt is a big problem because it erodes really easily and it doesn't have all of the benefits that soil has. And so our mission as a company is to use food waste to convert dirt to soil. And so you can take that, seemingly disgusting picture on the left, and then you can look over on the right, and it looks pretty good, and it's something that is really beneficial to us. So, I put our social value in 3 categories. First of all, resource recovery. We want to replace landfills and incinerators that are usually located in poor areas. and then, reducing the need for resource extraction, which then, mines are often in poorer areas as well. So, if we can use our resources more responsibly in a closed loop system, then, we might not have to extract as much, and, we'll definitely not have to landfill as much.
30 seconds.
Soil health. Yep. Soil health, air, water, and farm workers. A lot of people don't know about the value of soil health. We can actually clean up contaminated soil with improved soil health. And then the economics of it. Waste management is expensive, and we want to create circular economies to actually create value out of waste. So that's it. Thanks so much.
Excellent. We get the judges back up here.
Hey, Jacob.
Judges, Kathy's on the other side, so I'm going to monitor the chat. So if I get a question from me, I'm proxy for her.
Got it. Kelly, you want to go first this time?
Yes. So one of the questions I had is, how do you deal with cross-contamination of product? I personally compost, and I know that from dealing with the companies, a piece of plastic gets mixed in, and then it just destroys the entire load. How is that dealt with? And is it all of our garbage goes to one place and then sifted, or is it like organics are kept separate like compost? I guess it's two different questions. I'm sorry.
Well, I can kind of answer them in one thing. Source separation is really important. So, we want to educate the people that, we're either hauling food waste from, or if they're dropping off, to reduce the contamination in that. And we want them to do that separation. And we, have education associated. We have price signaling. So, we say landfill is the most expensive and organics is the cheapest. But then once it, worst case, when it does happen, because it inevitably always has contamination in it, our process is a really passive process. So it's not as active as a lot of other composting processes. And what that means is a lot of other compost processes, they're like shredding the material and really heating the material. And so that actually can, if you have contamination in there, like plastic per se, it could, shred or, melt into the finished product, and that's a problem. Our process, we keep it between 50 and 95 degrees the whole time. So if there's plastic, it actually lasts through the whole process, and then we can screen it out at the end. So, that's, and with regards to, we're servicing a residential drop-off site. So, the community will come to us, and, they'll have a green bin that they dump their food waste away, and then they'll have a blue bin that they have their recyclables in, and then they'll have, a black bin that they have, their residual landfill waste in. And so, we want them to do that source separation. We don't want to bring it back and then, separate it like that. Hope that answered it.
Jumping in, because we had a question from Kathy. He asks, how are you engaging with public policy on this? Do you have a plan?
Yeah, so we're very active with New York State DEC, and there's they recently passed a food waste law that actually requires producers of 2 tons per week of food waste to actually divert it from a landfill. And so we were very active in pushing for that legislation, and we're continuing to push for to lower that, because 2 tons per week is a lot, and we'd like to see that 1 ton or 500, and some of the exemptions as well. So we're engaging as it relates to that law. We're also engaging as it relates to packaging material. So we're really trying to encourage biodegradable packaging. At the same time, talking about there is some problems with some compostable packaging, and so we want to be on the forefront of that. And so we engage with whomever might be interested in working with us, whether it's a public institution or a private. We try to encourage them, hey, these are the things that we encourage you by, and these are the things that we don't encourage you by. And then we continue to engage with them as it relates to like soil health, and we're very active in advocating for soil health is a climate solution, and it's actually the one that has no downside. So we're very active in advocating for payments for ecosystem services for farmers and other types of soil health incentive programs. So we touch it from both sides, from the waste and the agricultural side.
Excellent. That is time.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you, Jacob.
There are some exciting things going on around the area. So thank you for participating, Jacob. And Mike, I did receive a message from Fabio, who's our next presenter. He may need assistance in sharing his screen. So Fabio Osorio, who is a resident of Buffalo, but splits his time in Rochester and Buffalo. So I would consider him a transplant to the region. And Fabio is a co-founder of Arbol. So Fabio, you should be on deck. All right, man. Good to see you.
Fabio, before I drop, I'll make sure you can see where you could hit the share screen button for you.
Awesome. Hello, everyone. Can you guys hear me well?
Coming through for me. Are you able to share?
Yeah, I'm just waiting for the computer to respond. Give me just a second. Okay, let me try one more time. Okay. Can you guys see my screen?
Yep. I'm gonna mute myself now. I'm gonna drop.
Perfect. Hello, everyone. Thanks for the chance to present to you this evening. My name is Fabio Osorio, and I'm co-founder and CEO of Arbol. Arbol is a fintech / market network that helps low-income college students in the U.S. raise funds to cover their life expenses, get advice, and build their network by connecting them with their biggest supporters online. We are like GoFundMe, but we're laser focused on education and are so much more than just crowdfunding. We live in a world where talent is equally distributed, but opportunity is not. Arbol students like Camila, Jaden, Milo, and Rachel all have great aspirations, but the odds are stacked against them. In the US, 8 million college students currently live in poverty. Many of whom come from disadvantaged communities, and only 2 of 10 graduate. That is terrible, but this is happening because, unfortunately, financial aid fails to cover essential life expenses such as food, rent, transportation, and childcare. To get by, students like Gina end up borrowing more and more, or have to work 40+ hours a week while going to school and helping their families. As both an immigrant and the first person in my family to graduate from college, I can personally attest to these challenges. Supporters like the one on your right want to help, have become frustrated with existing solutions like GoFundMe or Kiva that lack transparency, one-on-one connection, and visibility into how their funding actually benefits the student. Now, Arbol alleviates all these issues, first by providing the students financial support, guidance, and community, and second, by giving the supporters transparency, one-on-one connection, and behind the scenes access to the inspiring lives of the students. Essentially, what we want to do for supporters is turn their giving into something bigger than just a gift or a contribution. We want them to feel as if they actually have the power and the information they need to make an intelligent investment decision in the students that they truly believe in. Here's how Arbol works. Supporters like Susan, who is actually from Western New York, find hardworking students like Gina based on their stories and backgrounds. Then, unlike GoFundMe, where essentially anyone can start a fundraiser of any amount, on Arbol, we actually help students like Gina derive their financial need by looking at their inflows and outflows, just like a wealth advisor or a financial planner would do when you're trying to assess your overall financial position. Then Gina and other students receive the funds to use them towards their life expenses, like books, food, and rent. And then finally, the students interact with the supporters to share their progress, get advice, and network. We launched a beta during Q3 and have 20 students and 20 supporters fully signed up. On top of that, we have approximately 4,500 students in our pipeline that are just waiting to join the platform. Also, last week, we hit a key milestone. We got our first student funded. She was raising $3,000 for the spring semester. And this is just one small, but also big example of what's to come. Finally, we have generated $3,000 in monthly GMB. As you can see, our intention is to leverage our digital platform to get scale. That's really our superpower, to then reach more students, reach more supporters, connect them, and enable them to interact and exchange value. Currently, we have a transaction-based business model that monetizes the flow of funds in two ways. First, the students pay a 10% commission on all funds raised. And second, supporters pay 3% for payment processing. Now, there is plenty of room to scale here, particularly when we're talking about supporters. Charitable giving is a $450 billion market in the US alone. And giving towards education exceeded $63 billion in 2019 and has grown by 12% year over year. This number is actually expected to become $100 billion in the next 2 years. To grow our student base, we partner with social impact organizations such as the Urban League, Road to Hire, and Buffalo Prep. And to grow our supporters base, we're doing outreach to 1, alumni who give back to their alma mater, 2, philanthropists and charitable individuals who give to local nonprofits, particularly those that have a focus on education, and 3, people who actively give through online channels like GoFundMe and Kiva. Our competition consists of crowdfunding platforms that are not necessarily focused enough to drive us out of our niche market, and financial focused solutions that don't offer the community and networking aspect of our business. Our team consists of experts in marketplaces, crowdfunding, and financial services. Starting at the top from left to right, you have David, who is a Canisius College MBA, has banking, product management experience and technology experience as well. Most recently, he's led operations for startup named Kangaroo Time here in Buffalo. Then it's me. I'm a Duke MBA, Go Blue Devils, with a background in banking and financial planning. And then we also have Nahom Sososa, who is our community and social media manager. And we also have advisors like Esteem Nikosha, Adi Akufo-Fool, or local to Rochester, and Isaac Adejuwan, who's based in Toronto.
30 seconds.
And with that, I'll pause and open it up for questions or comments. Thank you.
Excellent.
Great job, Fabio. Thank you. You mentioned community networking. Can you elaborate on that?
I'm sorry, it broke up a little bit for me. Could you repeat the question?
Sure. Yeah. You mentioned that your platform has community and networking elements involved. Could you expand on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're essentially at the intersection of GoFundMe, LinkedIn, and Patreon. So in addition to enabling the student to be able to transact with supporters and vice versa, we're also giving the students the ability to schedule office hours with professionals in the space. And when they do that, they get a chance to interact, connect, exchange information about what they're currently working on. In the case of the student, if they have questions about a potential professional career path, they can always reach out to someone in that space and interact with them.
Great. And how do your fees for your platform relate to GoFundMe and Kiva?
Yeah, so currently we have a transaction-based business model. So indirectly, we charge 10% of the funds that are raised from the contributors, from the supporters. We charge that to the students. So relative to what GoFundMe and Kiva, or specifically GoFundMe does, they do have a similar model in that respect. And then we charge a 3% payment processing fee to the supporters.
So what is the fee that GoFundMe charges, and what is the fee that Kiva charges?
Yeah, so in the case of GoFundMe, my understanding is they charge a 15% fee, transaction-based fee, which has evolved over time. It used to be a 15% fee on every transaction, and then that evolved into what it's now called a tip. But they promoted that because they do believe that actually people end up providing a 15% tip. So that's a default that they actually provide on their platform.
Okay, and Kiva?
Kiva is a little bit different in that respect, I believe. I don't know the exact numbers, to be honest with you, but I know they also do micro lending, which is a little bit different than what GoFundMe does.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I might be repeating part of that question because I think my internet just went down and I had to reboot so I could hear part of it, but I had a couple of seconds. My question was regarding the fees. It did say that the students have to pay part of those fees.
So we don't charge the student. We take a 10% payment fee or transaction fee on the funds that are raised from the supporters.
Okay. And then a small thing, this is probably like a tiny little detail, but I saw when you showed us what the page looks like for people to match up with donate to, that there's images like of the people. Is there a reason that you chose to do it in like that kind of format versus just the information?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that question? In that kind of format versus information?
Right, using their face, like their pictures. So, I mean, there's like a heavy bias that's implicit in like how we choose to, you have there's like Adopt US Kids on, and like you have like all these pictures and the kids that get chosen. Mm-hmm. The use of images I just found really interesting, and I was wondering if there was a reason you chose the images versus just putting each student's information in.
I see. Yeah, that's a great question. So it's why we decided to do that was because that was actual feedback that we received from the supporters. They wanted to have that one-on-one connection with individuals. The one thing that came up over and over again during interviews is that when I give directly to an organization, such as my alma mater or a nonprofit, I do feel like I'm making an impact, but I also feel like I'm giving into a nameless and faceless black box. I don't really know who's getting the funds. I don't know who the student is. How are they actually using the funding over time? Give me access to kind of like behind the scenes access to the lives of the students to see how they're progressing over time, who they are, and what are they actually trying to achieve. So that's we're paying attention to the feedback that we receive from them to build these prototypes and launch the beta.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're at time there.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Fabio. I'm going to queue up our next presentation. Not sure if we had an internet glitch or if he has jumped back into the community building, but Richard fell off the presenter link. So as I get the next group set up, I may take a shot at doing the intro. And I appreciate everyone's flexibility as we move through this virtual world. So we're pulling up Tina right now. Tina will be our next presenter. Tina, let me know when you can see and talk.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Can you see me now?
Not seeing any video, but we can hear you.
Okay. I'm going to click share screen and see if everybody can see that. If not, you'll just hear my beautiful voice. So first and foremost, thank you so much for this opportunity. I have never done a pitch battle before, so I am extremely excited to be doing. So I want to tell you a little bit about my company. Can you see my screen or no?
Not yet.
Okay, so I'm going to continue to start because I know I only have 5 minutes. So I'm the owner of Imprintable Solutions, Inc. We are an 8-year-old company. I created a division called Imprinting Lives within our company. So who are we? Imprintable Solutions, we uplift branding and marketing efforts for businesses and organizations through printing, promotional products, and decorated apparel. That's the what. But that's not what sets us apart. We love what we do, and we love how we do it. So what do we really do? So we're a service that's of service to the community. We're working with young people at risk, disconnected opportunity, young people between the ages of 17 and 23. Those disconnections are from education, sustainable employment, and we're working with groups of young people who are chronically homeless, gang affiliated, re-entry, refugees, English language learners, differently abled, pregnant, and parenting. We believe in conscious capitalism, serving leadership, and we are a social enterprise. This is something that we just don't believe in, but we actually do it. So I partner with, the company partners with about 12 different nonprofit organizations throughout Rochester and Monroe County. That's how our young people come to us. And when they come to us, they are on internship, OJT, which is on-the-job training, or work tryout programs, whatever their vernacular is. Once they get here, we provide, I guess you could say, value-added services, right? So if their organization is working with them on getting their high school equivalency and the young person is having a challenge, I'll bring in private tutors for them. We have a full kitchen, washer and dryer, full bathroom. We provide emergency transportation, emergency childcare. We also do lunch and learns where they're still earning and learning. And we go over basic banking, help bank accounts get started, credit counseling, tenant rights, voter registration. We do follow an open hiring model. We believe in flexibility, and we believe in impact over outcome. So when we talk about impacts and outcomes, we're talking about if you're grant funded or if you have a program, a lot of people need to check the box, right? So that's an outcome. We actually believe in impact, meaning young people are having the opportunity to do their own heavy lifting and move from point A to point B to their next steps. So things that we do to remove barriers. We have no formal interview process. We do not require high school equivalency. We do not do background checks or drug testing. We have no formal dress code. The work schedule is flexible and extremely creative. Our three things, obviously impact over outcome, educating other employers, profitability through serving leadership and conscious capitalism, and leaving space for growth for everybody. How are we doing on time? Okay, so the benefits. So when we talk about conscious capitalism, when we talk about privately owned businesses, you still need to remain profitable. So benefits to the programs that we do, we have heavy retention, 87.5% retention rate. Our productivity is up and our profitability is up. And then there's perceived risk versus reward. So I had put together some statistics so that everybody can take a look. Our young people that are moving on to their next step successfully, however they term successful, is 89%. Our gross profit, and this was from 2018 to 2019, was up 5%. The pandemic kind of threw everything a little sideways, but we're still right around those numbers for 2020. And facts in dollars and cents for those that, we are here, we are a business, we are a privately owned business. Our overall sales increased, they doubled, and our throughput and gross profit went up over just about 20%, by having young people be empowered to create their own working space. So the profits that we actually grew with, it has turned into 3 full-time and 7 part-time positions for our young people. So we're helping achieve next steps, and we do it through safe, inclusive, and flexible environments. So I decided to put an ask in here and say, will you join us in building business, being a partner? And if not you, then who?
You still have a little bit more time, but if you're wrapped up there, we can bring the judges in.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind answering questions. I mean, I talked pretty fast because I wanted to fit a lot in there.
All right, we're gonna bring the judges up. And as we're doing that, just quick question.
Yes, sir.
Do you have a minimum order size?
1.
Okay, all right. I may have some requests for you coming up.
That would be awesome.
If the judge is all right with it, I'll give you guys a little bit more time since she had a little bit shorter of a presentation.
I just talked really fast. I was really nervous.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned open hiring model. What does that
Yes.
look like?
So an open hiring model, and It's where you're removing barriers. Open hiring with our young people is we're bringing on anybody that sits before us in whatever space they're in and however they need to be met. So open hiring, if you look up Greyston Industries, get Greyston Bakeries, they started in the Bronx. They're actually here in Rochester now. And I'm happy to connect anybody with Greyston so that they can learn more about the open hiring model. It's fascinating and it works.
I think I lost internet. Am I there?
You're there.
Okay. So when you say that, do you go through an interview process, or is it I'm hiring, you want a job, you're hired?
So one of the things that we do is because our environment is when you walk in, and people often say there's a vibe, right? So young people, when they come in, because of some of the situations and life experiences that they have, they're living in chaos every day and trauma. So this is a different feel and a different vibe. So I want them to come in and be comfortable with what they're seeing, what they're going to get, if they want to be ready, if they want to learn, if they're comfortable here, and if they are, they're hired, they're here. But it's all based on the person sitting before us. This isn't just, yeah, I got you, or I'm going to hire you, or it's driven by the human. Human driven.
I've got one. Tina, what drove you to start this? Why did you want to do this?
So I'll put out some information. When I was 19, I was beaten within an inch of my life, and I lived on the streets for a year. And I had no idea if there were services, didn't know to look for services, didn't know how to get connected. And there are a lot of times that I wonder if things would look different, and the journey would have looked a little less painful had I had somebody who took me under their wing. So that's one of the reasons that and you know what, young people are our jam. That seems to be where the company flows really well. So that's why we would do what we do.
You also mentioned that you said 87%
retention.
Yeah, retention. Is that on with your colleagues or with your customers? Or both?
It's our colleagues. So one of the things that we do is, so our young people come in on internship and then we hire them. And 87% choose to stay. They say, this is comfortable for me. I'm moving differently. My energy is differently. And I'm moving on to next steps, getting my high school equivalency, graduating, driver's license, all of that. So they choose to stay. Great. And I love it.
And the impact that you're making on these young people and the flexibility that you're providing is huge, right? I mean, that you mentioned the impact and the benefits of that. What are some of the challenges that you find with running your organization?
Oh, lots of challenges, but you have to look at them differently. I would say the biggest challenges are systemic barriers that the young people are running into when they go to renew their driver's license, or when they're registering for something, or when they're calling DHS or DSS. A lot of times we'll step in and advocate on their behalf through the court systems, the criminal system, the civil system, and the human services systems. So those are really big challenges. The other things that other employers might see as challenges, we just roll with them and work with them. And I'll give you an idea. So we have a production schedule because we have manufacturing equipment. We have to produce. All I'm worried about is, number one is quality, right? And is it going to get done within that 24-hour period? So if you're scheduled to be here at 8, it's 8-ish. And 8-ish could be 11 because we don't know what's happening in your morning. You might be taking care of your mom. You might be taking care of brothers and sisters. RTS, your bus pass may have failed because it fails about 30% of the time. I started tracking that. So we as a company don't know what's happening in your world. And unless you want to tell us, it's quite frankly none of our business. So we have an ish schedule. And so long as it gets done within 24 hours, we're good. So long as we're meeting customer needs. And it's all based on how we schedule things too. So is that a challenge? Not really for us.
We had a question from Kathy, and she says, great idea. How did you decide what services to offer employees? How do you decide?
Oh, that's all team member driven. as the leader, I don't unilaterally say, this is what you need or this is what we need. What happens is the young people come and my team, and as they grow into the team, they come and say, hey, I need this, or that's a gap. Or like that's how we end up, I stock the kitchen for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Washer and dryer, teaching young people how to wash their clothes, do voter registration because they weren't, and bring in people to talk about who's running. That's all team driven. It's whatever is brought to the leadership. It's all team driven.
Love it.
Thank you.
Well, that's our time for the Q&A.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate it. That was
Thanks for
awesome.
joining us, yeah. And awesome job with not having any visuals. That was really great.
Thanks.
Here I am, right? Is that my turn? So apologies to all who might be experiencing some technical issues as I did before. I heard everything. This is a new format. RocGrowth and Startup Grind are about innovation. So we're innovating and adopting this. It's like, why not? We'll learn from it, give us feedback. This is the new normal. So I also did not point out yet that there are some awards to the so-called winner. They're all winners, aren't they? I just sort of want to like give them all applause, and we still have one more, the final. But before we deliberate and give Zach Sarkis of Flower City Collective an opportunity to speak, there's certain startup grind swag, memberships, the one that RocGrowth swag. We're also a book by our one and only Martin Babinick, one of the most successful recent entrepreneurs in upstate, More Good Jobs. I really encourage people who haven't read this to learn more about it. It's the real deal. Some of us are mentioned in the book for our good works. And in addition, there will be some privileged access and benefits with WeFunder, which is one of the more significant crowdfunding for equity websites or sites. So Zach, why don't you go? This is yours, man. We have the hoodies going. All right. Unmute.
All right. Yeah, give me one moment just to get my screen share dialed in. Okay, here, Chrome tab. Okay, maybe we'll just do this entire screen. Try using, okay, one moment here. It's asking me to have another tab. This is innovation, folks. Don't we forget. Okay, share screen. Okay, let's try to do this, and then
We got it.
okay, cool. View, present.
Right, hang on until it stops saying load. All right, we can see.
All right,
we
cool.
can see your slides.
All right, my name is Zach Sarkis, and I'm the founder of Flower City Collective. We operate as a small seed-to-sale cannabis business here in Rochester, New York, focusing on premium CBD and CBG dominant cannabis products, so that's hemp-derived. We're a leader in specialty events, and we're pivoting into the adult use cannabis market. A little bit about me, I've been working in the cannabis industry for the past 5 years, but really have like a 7-year relationship with actually hands-on. I've been leading the educational movement in our region around hemp and cannabis since 2018 through another side project called New York Hemp Lab. And I personally witnessed how the war on drugs has devastated my own community and communities around me. I consider myself an entrepreneur, a farmer, a teacher, a yogi, and a dog dad. So before we talk about business, you got to understand the legal framework here. In 2018, the US government legalized industrial hemp, which allowed for this boom for CBD products that we're currently operating in right now. In this past March, we saw the passing of the Marijuana Regulation Taxation Act, which is championed as one of the highest level social equity bills. Was fought hard for from advocates locally, such as myself. It's really focused on trying to begin to wrong the rights of the war on drugs and the criminalization of cannabis. Big issue right now is it's an infantile regulatory framework. We have the law in place, but no regulations. Corporate cannabis is big and it is ready to come and dominate. And I'll tell you what, it feels like the Wild West as we're trying to plan. The New York cannabis market was estimated by the Rockefeller Institute to be about $3.5 billion in sales in 2018. I've heard that number closer to $4 billion right now. And if we begin to imagine an entire ecosystem supporting the cannabis industry, that economy is closer to 7 and 8 billion projected by friends and allies in this industry. So Flower City, our mission is to lead the craft cannabis revolution by creating and supporting craft cannabis products that are fair to the earth, equitable to our farming community, and empowering to our customers. We see cannabis as it should be, a world in which each person knows, understands, celebrates the resilient and regenerative nature of cannabis farming and distribution. Flower City is craft cannabis culture. Every farm we partner with, every team member we employ, and every product we create reflects our commitment to changing the cannabis industry and doing better. It's better for our earth, better for our communities, and better for ourselves. Better for the earth by using regenerative agricultural practices that build soil and sequester carbon in our cultivation, and moving towards zero waste throughout our business model. Better for our communities, we pay livable wages and have been paying livable wages since day one, and are rolling out and offer an equity ownership opportunity for our employee and founding team. We're committed to fair trade exchanges with our farming partners, and we reinvest in initiatives that support, educate, and empower our community. And for ourselves, we offer the highest quality cannabis products at an accessible price. We believe this plant can and will enhance the personal well-being of its users, and the wellness that we are designing and promote includes everybody, because that is what craft cannabis culture looks like, and that's what it's like to craft cannabis culture. What we've accomplished thus far, we launched our sales in March 2021, our e-com, B2B, B2C, and we've really been building this project out since 2018. We have 10 high quality SKUs. We've trained 5 employees from scratch working in operations and fulfillment. We've identified and are partnering with key hires with a 14-month runway off of 50,000 angel round. We've done more like 30 pop-ups, met thousands of people this summer. And we also hosted a one-of-a-kind, it's first of a kind of its event, the Flower City Cup last year, which we were able to raise $6,000 for community reinvestment through a cannabis competition, and we're doing it again this year with the goal of raising $20,000. This is just a little image of what we're doing. We're a real thing. We've done a whole bunch of cool different stuff. We got a catalog. You can see in the top left from the seed all the way to the sale just below that. Our team, we got an awesome, diverse group of people that range from folks who are capable of leading our operations and fulfillment to legacy operators who've been cultivating and are experts in that field, to brand development, social equity, and events. Great people. Hope you get to learn and meet us down the road. Our core competencies as a group are premium production and consumer packaged goods. So bringing the highest quality products through this entire process from the seed all the way to sale. We're also we have expertise in processing and co-packing premium flower products. We have a core capacity to offer consulting from seed to sale, and we're doing some cool stuff around events. Our value proposition is to ensure fair trade, pay, and pricing throughout our supply chain. We will look to serve as a distribution platform focusing on craft cannabis, helping cultivators, whether it's ourselves or others, through events and marketing and processing to distribute. We're also building true equity into our business model through employee ownership, and we are being a driving force for community reinvestment to leverage cannabis to do good in this world. For example, $1 from every sale goes back to community reinvestment. We'll talk more about that later. Okay, what's next? Adult use. It's a crazy world out there when we're talking about licensing. It's overwhelming, but we have our eye on the prize on a couple of different things. A micro business, which would be micro vertical integration, a cultivation, processing, distribution license, and or a cooperative.
30 seconds, Zach.
More to say on that later. But one of the things we're most excited about as we're waiting to see the regulatory framework is this idea of filling the cup. We put on the Flower City Cup last year. The idea is that we fill the cup throughout the year. When the cup is full, we'll use those cups. We'll use that to fill the cups of others. We'll do that by $1 of every sale going into reinvestment, courting other industry actors to give money back, and committing percentage of all of our events profits to go into this fund. Last year, we did a first of a kind of event where we had a bunch of submissions. We were advocating for good causes to support the farming community, and we gave back to 3 local organizations. And this year, we're going to do a bigger and better, try to raise $20,000. And through this process, raise awareness of the importance of cannabis flower, and also to begin to better understand consumer trends and build out a framework for distribution. So we are dedicated to the well-being and regeneration of our communities, our environment, and our bodies. And every aspect of our business and our growth and production is a testament to our mission, our roots, and our lifestyle of craft cannabis. I thank you all for this opportunity and looking forward to some questions.
Awesome. Great timing. And I think you should make that the World Cup. So in 10 years from now, whoever's looking back on that, they'll associate it with this great town as well.
That's right.
Great job, Zach. I'll kick us off with questions. You talked about your farming partners. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, so we partner directly with a small family farm, certified organic, the most regenerative agriculture I've ever seen in my life. If you are not a CSA member of Growing Family Farms, you should sign up immediately. It is literally the best food on the planet, and it's coming right out of our backyard. I've been leading the charge there for cultivation, and through that exchange, creating a really farm-facing model in which we give X amount of every sale back to the farm to ensure its longevity. We've also, through our distribution channels, partnered with other farms, paying them above market value when we can't fulfill our own supply chain needs with our own product. So through, for example, the cup we put on last year, we know there was over $100,000 in GDP generated by connecting dots through this process. So I've purchased from other farms, I facilitate the brokering of other farms, and also support the farm, the home team as well.
And is that part of your scale model too, is to continue kind of building out with relationships in farms? You don't intend to own farms in the future. You want to keep this community sort of going?
Dependent on the license. Micro license includes vertical integration, that is seed to sale, including processing. That is where we would cultivate only if we can grow the best. And I do believe that at Growing Family Farms, for example, we can grow the highest quality outdoor possible on the East Coast. And our cultivation partner and lead cultivator can grow the highest quality indoor cannabis that would justify that process. If we aren't going to get that license, which is going to be incredibly competitive, it's directed towards social equity applicants. As a white male from privilege, I have to question, what am I applying for, how I'm doing it. I do think where I'm coming from, what I'm doing, and what's built in my business model, I can qualify for what I hope to apply for. Alternatively, it is playing more of this center hub role where we're partnering with craft cultivators, offering the service of processing and distribution and raising the community. So it is dependent on what license we get. And no matter what, I hope to cultivate a little bit for the rest of my life, but whether I'll be the lead cultivator moving forward, probably not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. Great job.
You mentioned community reinvestment a few times. What exactly does that look like?
Yeah, great. So last year we raised $6,000 for community reinvestment. That means we gave $2,000 to 3 local funds: Rock Food Relief, the Flower City Noir Collective, and the Massachusetts Avenue Project over in Buffalo. So 3 organizations that are sheltering, empowering, and feeding our most vulnerable community members. This year, again, we're doubling down on that. Those 3 will be the recipients, and each one of them has advocated for another recipient in their community that they think would be would do well with the resources. And our goal is to raise $20,000. Flower City's committed $1 of every sale product sold goes into a fund that we are establishing as we speak. 25% of all we can guarantee 25% of all the event profits that we'll be putting on, which we're doing 5 pop-up shows, buffet style cannabis testing basically from January through March of next year, where a portion of each one of those events, the profits will go to the reinvestment fund. And we're going to have a huge party in April, like a 420 party, where I'm going to raise $20,000 just at that event alone through sponsors, vendors, sales, etc., to really create a foundation and set precedent of what a community can do when they're motivated, especially. And we have this unique opportunity with an emerging market to decide and not wait on the state to say, yes, we're going to take some of this tax money and put it back in our community once we have a pool big enough. It's like we can do it now. And I think with enough influence in community building, it can be built, again, filling the cup throughout the year so we can hit a goal. Democratizing the distribution process, where our goal for next year is anyone who puts money into the pot can advocate for someone who can receive those funds, and then we'll have a voting process. So we're starting simple, we've decided who has high impact, but eventually beginning to evolve it to invite more perspective, more people at the table, and hopefully distribute beyond Rochester and Buffalo.
That's about time right there.
Cool.
Thank you, Zach.
Yeah, thanks. Shout out to Dennis, my fellow dog dad.
I'm gonna pop Richard up here real quick.
Yeah, thank you. In the interest of time, I want to, first of all, now this is the moment we're going to set aside for the judges to convene privately. And determine the winner. So Mike, do you want to arrange that? And then I believe I'm going to stay on. I want Melissa Mueller-Douglas to have her time. I know she has some time constraints because at 7 o'clock she has an event that she's hosting tied into the business she's going to describe.
So I'm going to cue that up for you, Richard.
Okay.
Judges and judges only. There is a, at the top of the screen, there is a tab that says networking, and we created a judges networking room. So I'll ask those folks to jump over there and then just ping me if there's any sort of issue. But Richard, I'm going to set up Melissa, and then I'll also add, was it Adam? I don't see him on here anymore, but I'll set up Melissa. And if you want to add other people to present, we'll get them going.
Sweet. We might have lost Adam. Yeah. Hi. I assume I'm here individually. We have Melissa. Hi, Melissa.
Good to see you, Richard.
You can hang in with us for a little bit?
Tell me, so we've popped out of the main.
You're on the stage. I believe
Excellent.
Everyone is, yeah,
Let's
everyone
do this.
hears you. Thanks.
You've got 90 seconds of me, and then I'll be eating chocolate mindfully. All right. I am Melissa, founder and CEO of My Retreat at the intersection of tech and wellness. My Retreat provides mindfulness for employees based on stress reduction for employees to support, to get support in managing their stress. Our chocolate mindfulness app supports employees who meditate and those who don't with sensory mindfulness. The app's pathway takes employees through intention setting, guided imagery, a chocolate meditation, and gratitude journaling. Employers are able to learn their employees' preferences for managing stress, to get support during supervision, to increase retention and strengthen community culture. As a licensed social worker, I'm uniquely positioned to scale My Retreat as I actively listen to businesses and universities' needs and offer macro solutions. I'm proud to be an American Express 100 for 100 founder of change, and I'm proud of the My Retreat community I'm building, which includes clients such as the YW Rochester, Public Relations Society of America of Rochester, and the University of Rochester. Those are just local. I use one piece of chocolate with partnerships with chocolatiers so that My Retreat can bring tangible solutions to the workplace. And after this event, for those of you who have iPhones and iPads, go ahead and download the Chocolate Mindfulness app for free. Enjoy a piece of chocolate of your choosing, and let's get up to 100 people eating chocolate tonight, because when that happens, My Retreat sends out a chocolate mindfulness self-care package to continue to impact our community. Take good care.
Thank you, Melissa. I need
Thank you.
my back covered by Mike, who handles this technology. So I am now filling the space. It's like when a radio goes silent. And Melissa, if you need to depart, I'll have you. I don't mind you staying here. You and I can have a conversation about what you're up to. First of all, I know we met through Rochester Open Coffee Club, I believe. If not, you're out there hustling and availing yourself of opportunities to become more acquainted and obtain feedback and market yourself through a number of the channels that exist in our community, these organizations.
Including Bossy Rochester, absolutely.
All right. So this is the ecosystem, and this is what Martin Babinick describes in his book called More Good Jobs. And the subtitle is An Entrepreneur's Action Plan to Create Change in Our Community. And actually, Martin resides in Little Falls, which is, to be generous, a suburb of Utica. It's in the Mohawk Valley, an exit off the thruway. And he built a company that has a market cap of roughly $7 billion. And he likes to state that it would have been impossible if he lived in New York, upstate New York, to achieve what he did while building the company in the Valley, in the San Francisco area. And so he is a pay it forward individual, loves upstate, in fact, commuted between Little Falls and San Francisco for years because he wanted to raise his family with the values in the environment of upstate New York. So he launched an organization called Upstate Venture Connect with Nasser Ali. And it's an effort to develop the entrepreneurial ecosystem, and with the same attitude that you find not only in the Bay Area, but in other communities that have thrived as entrepreneurial hotbeds in recent years, such as Boulder and Austin. You give first without expectation. And I find so many individuals in Rochester are prepared to do that. We need to empower them, elevate them, and they tend to be in the demographic represented by many of the individuals, Melissa here, a little younger than me, and they get this sort of stuff. So RocGrowth and the individuals who are supporting Startup Grind Rochester are part of that. We do this all on a voluntary basis, and I know many people who are attending. Hopefully, some people are still out there. It's hard to see that. Are part of that ecosystem. And we hope you preserve the fortitude that keeps you going forward, because I find a great deal of satisfaction, and so do my teammates at RocGrowth. And this gives me a convenient moment to shout out Tom Myers, Chris Cooley, who I don't believe is on the call because of some personal issues, and our prayers with him and his family, and Josh Krager. And then perhaps a dozen or more individuals over the last 7 years who've jumped in and jumped out when life intervened, career or whatever, and they couldn't continue contributing their time. So we are reachable. I see the emails personally at info@RocGrowth. If any of you have suggestions or want to get involved in some way, please. We don't assign much value to ideas. The value is in executing and attempting to do something. And there is no the word failure means something entirely different to an individual engaged in the innovation economy than someone in a large organization or perhaps a university or other structure. So failure is just you tried, you learned.
That's right, Richard.
Yeah, it's like the scientific method. If you approach it and you're doing an experiment, it doesn't work. You just say, hey, now it's a smaller set of possibilities that might work. Right. So I just negate that one, cross that one off the list. So, and that's.
And now I'm going to head to execute.
Pardon me?
Go ahead to execute. We have 150 people who RSVP'd, and I'm going to let them into a chocolate mindfulness experience.
Okay.
It's
How
so
do you do
good to be
chocolate?
here, and I look.
How do you do chocolate digitally? That's what I want to know.
Come on to our just rockmyretreat.com. ROC stands for Rochester, myretreat.com. And our next event is November 6th. Hope to see you all there. Take good care.
All right. Thank you, Melissa. Say hello to your husband. So maybe I'm just talking to a screen, but hopefully some of you are out there awaiting the results from our judges. Beautiful day in Rochester. I voted. It was wonderful, wonderful doing early voting. It was at 250 East Main Street, the Sibley building, very professionally organized, very accessible, a system that I would hope to see nationally. There's no excuse, whatever one's political preferences or party line or political opinions are. So I encourage you to vote. I believe it's November 2nd is the official election day. And some of the election outcomes have already been determined. But in January 1st, there's going to be a very different landscape, and everything I've observed, and I know many of the elected officials who are currently in office and others that are coming in, they've exhibited an openness, friendliness, and a degree of support that is really a breath of fresh air for our community. Whether it's the arts or startup entrepreneurs, social entrepreneurship, the role that the private sector can play in addressing the social issues that have been so featured in the last year and a half, 2 years, as a result of some of the racial injustices and the pandemic. So Rochester, it's looking very good. I know we have a very cold winter likely ahead of us, and those of you who enjoy the cold weather and are skiers have even more to look forward to. But the other thing that I live right downtown, I think I drove my car today. I'm not sure. There's so many things that are going on. If for those of you who haven't yet walked around downtown and experienced the redevelopment, I think you'll be impressed. It's actually mind-blowing for people who haven't been downtown in the last 6 months to a year. Being a resident and being engaged in the community, you know, I've sort of walked around with virtual reality glasses because I knew what was coming down the pike. You know, people don't just move into a building. You know, you have an RFP, you have zoning changes, you have a developer, they have to build the building, but all the buildings on the east side of the inner loop fill, the east side where the inner loop fill occurred, those buildings have filled up. What was built as a project in the Red Line district, what was once a slum, unfortunately, the renovation of the Manhattan Square building is occurring and seems to be going along smoothly. So you have a neighborhood here that is actually quite diverse on the east side. Again, a bunch of individuals, private citizens have been leading the effort through Hinge Neighbors, that would be Sean Dunwoody and Suzanne Mayer and others, to address the issues that will emerge when we fill in the northern part of the inner loop, and that is likely to happen within several years. The funding is going to take a while and be incremental, but they're attempting to prepare the community so when we integrate two different sides of the track, that it occurs in harmony. It addresses the unfortunate harm that occurred as a result of urban renewal and the segregation in the 50s and 60s in our community, and it restores 20 or so acres to the city. And there are advocates who want to see plenty of green space, an initiative to increase home ownership for people who have been dispossessed over the years. So that Hinge Neighbors is something that we're watching, and it's very promising. I would love to see if someone is able to chat, because I am not sure if I'm still engaged. So Mike, so 5 seconds ago, Zach Ellis still here. Hopefully Mike Thaney hears me. I could go on and on. So ultimately, let me just tell you about some cool projects that haven't necessarily been publicized. I'll talk around them. We're going to see a lot more wall art downtown. This one is already in process on the East High School. The same artist who is responsible for the John Lewis mural on State Street is in the midst of producing another mural of very large scale on East High School, depicting some of the great leaders of the civil rights movement in Rochester in the early 60s, along with Malcolm X. That would be Reverend Franklin Florence, and Connie Mitchell. And there is a photo of all three of them together when Malcolm X visited Rochester, as he did on several occasions in the early 60s. In fact, he was here about a week or so prior to his assassination in 1965. So there are 50 people listening to me. So hopefully I'm not boring the hell out of you. But ultimately, that mural is going to go up. There's also a proposal out involving a private developer to where Ephraim Gabre, the artist, would paint Muhammad Ali downtown right near Gibson University on one of his properties. So we could have Malcolm and Muhammad Ali, both of whom had a very close relationship for several years, right downtown. I'm running out. I'm feeling impelled to talk about things that might not be very public, but I will share with you one other private initiative. back in July of last year, I initiated the effort to rename the Frederick Douglass Airport, and Adam Bello was incredibly receptive. This was just within weeks of the George Floyd murder and the protests that ensued. So there is a committee. It's sort of been a rocky path to date because of some, the way it got started and some politics. There is an effort, an organized effort that I believe will gain steam early next year to portray Frederick Douglass and his meaning to our society, the U.S., and why it's contemporary, and his connection to Rochester, and the role his family played, and do that in a way that is available in the public access areas of the airport, as well as posts beyond security. And there's more. Stay tuned. I was actually yesterday at the rededication of the Frederick Douglass statue that was toppled. The third time one of those Frederick Douglass statues in town had been knocked over or vandalized. And it was right there near the aqueduct building along the river. And it was magnificent seeing the Genesee River raging. And after all that, rain, raging with energy, heading north. The North Star was published right along the river there when Frederick Douglass moved here and opened up his operation. So the North Star, the North, that was the destination for those who were seeking freedom and emancipation from slavery. So on that one, I'm hoping that we get back Mike Thaney. Oh, moreover, present at that event where it was the current mayor, lovely Warren, and I heard the terms used jointly, in the presumptive elected mayor, whatever that means, Malik Evans, and they both spoke, and they were both cordial. Go get that we can actually, in the political world these days, have some civility and decency towards one another. And that's what we need to encourage, exhibit ourselves in Rochester, and work together, because so many outsiders can come to our town and observe. These are comments I've heard repeatedly. Don't you talk to each other? Because they'll end up dealing with two different agencies that are doing similar work that aren't collaborating. So on that note, I see the two judges and Mike. Do we have a conclusion here? Would you like to take over the mic, so to speak?
Yes,
All right.
hand over the judges. Thank you, Kelly.
That was very close. You was amazing to hear all of the really awesome things that are going on, and all of the change that's being made. And I love to see that people in businesses are thinking about these things and working to better our communities, right? So I'll go honorable mention, right? You're supposed to do like the lead up to the winner. So our honorable mention goes to their story. We were very excited about the entire idea, and I think that it has a possibility to be huge, and I think that's agreed upon by the judges. The ability to get conversations and stories down. I think about, my grandmother, and you look on genealogy and it says she had a baby, she got married, she died. So to having some more information to plug into that would be amazing. And our winner tonight goes to Imprintable Solutions. So Tina, we hope that your winning this helps you continue the work that you're doing to make change directly with the youth that you work with.
To echo what Kelly just said, it was very close. That's why we're deliberating for so long over there, and really exciting things that are going on in this community. And we're all really excited about all of these projects. Like Richard said, there's no loser here. Zach Ellis, if you want to say a few words, and then we can turn it over to Tina if she's still with us.
Sure.
Let's keep it brief because we
Yeah.
have to adhere to our schedule. It's already several minutes after 7. So that
Absolutely. Well,
no Academy Award speeches.
yeah. All I'll say is I'm really grateful for the opportunity to share more about what we're up to. And I definitely see these sorts of events as ways to bond as a community, get to know one another more, and hear about all the good work. So I'm really honored to be a part. Thanks so much, everyone.
Unfortunately, we lost Tina from the stage here, so we'll have to let her film her acceptance speech. Maybe Zach, you can help her with that.
Well, actually,
Perfect.
go to
Will do.
Printables. Yeah, and people, I've had products from bags to shirts printed multiple times. It is amazing. You could do one-off to an unlimited number. So let's support all these individuals. They're all fantastic, and we hope 3 to 5 years from now to look back at these future success stories and reflect that we knew them when they were just sort of like emerging. And yeah, rock on. We're here to help you. And thank you, judges. Thank you, Mike and your team. And thank you, my folks. And please, info@RocGrowth. Give us any information, ideas, ways you can help us. We look forward to see you soon. And it may be virtually, but or in person. We'll see how it rolls. All right. Take care.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. Thanks for participating.